Lost media is a very big passion of mine, from growing up on channels like Blameitonjorge to being part of some lost media events myself, like being part of the Cypher Hunt, which led to the release of the Gravity Falls pilot. Needless to say, I've become quite fixated with the pieces of media that we just can't seem to find. So today I'm going to take you down my list of my top 10 favourite pieces of lost media in no particular order. So let's get started. Meso Blues. Johnny Bravo is a show that I didn't really appreciate until I was a bit older, but something about this piece of lost media really intrigues me. Meso Blues is the original prototype short film that was made by the creator of Johnny Bravo, Van Portable, in 1993. It was a senior thesis project that he showed to his animation professor, who had a friend working at Hanna-Barbera. It featured, in his words, an over-the-hill aging rock star who thought he was Elvis. The studio really loved the short, and they asked Van if he could do a pitch for a 7-minute cartoon that was directly inspired by Meso Blues. This would eventually evolve and become what we now know as Johnny Bravo. The short was originally going to feature 3 Elvis impersonators, but due to time constraints, Van cut it down to having only 1 impersonator. Now, already by the few photos and little bits of footage that we do have, you can see that Johnny's current design isn't really that far off from his Meso Blues one. The character was altered so that he would instead be more of a 50s James Dean looking character that just talked like Elvis rather than being a full-blown impersonator. Meso Blues technically isn't lost, as Van owns the only VHS copy of it, but he chooses to keep the short to himself and to some close friends. The only footage of Meso Blues that we have is a 15-second snippet from the Bringing Up Johnny Bravo documentary. It's understandable as to why he chose to keep this to himself, but I just hope one day we'll eventually find the footage of Meso Blues, or maybe he'll choose to release it publicly. I'm still holding out hope. The Amazing World of Gumball, The Downer, the original draft. This one is shrouded in speculation. Many believe that it may not even exist at all, but it's one that I really like. The Downer is the 36th episode of the 3rd season of The Amazing World of Gumball. The final iteration of this episode revolves around the Wattersons trying to cheer Gumball up, as he's been having a really bad day. He then wishes for his family to disappear. His family does end up disappearing alongside all of Elmore. Gumball then slowly goes insane due to the situation. Some hijinks ensue, and it's eventually revealed that the entire episode was just in his head, and none of it actually happened. A typical Gumball episode for sure, but this entry may point to something more interesting. The original draft of this episode was supposedly much darker than the one we actually have now. Series creator Ben Beauclair mentions that this is why the episode was considerably rewritten. But how dark could it have been? Well, I guess we'll never know for sure due to the rewrites. The what-ifs on this one really makes it all the more intriguing to me. What do you guys think? Slamfest 99. Easily one of the most bizarre yet amazing pieces of lost media, and one that I really want to be found. Slamfest 99 was a special event held on April 24th, 1999. It was made to promote the North American release of Super Smash Bros. For the N64. It took place at the MGM Grand Adventures in Las Vegas. The event showcased a fully staged wrestling match with 4 mascot characters from Super Smash Bros. Duking it out in the ring. This was a well-documented event. It was live streamed, we have several photos proving its existence from magazines like the N64 magazine, X64, and even a press photo in the Sacramento Bee. Yet, despite it all, we have no footage. The promotion was actually scaled back quite a lot due to the Columbine High School shooting which took place earlier that week, as video game violence was highly controversial during this time, of course. And with the internet still being relatively new at the time, there weren't really that many ways to archive live streams effectively. I really hope that one day we'll eventually find footage of this one, because it's such an interesting piece of Nintendo history, which I think we all should see. Let's just hope that one day somebody will come forward with a copy. Sailor Mouth, the uncensored audio. Now this one's a classic. Sailor Mouth is an episode from the golden era of SpongeBob. It's an episode which tries to teach the lesson to kids to avoid swearing. Throughout the episode, SpongeBob and Patrick learn swear words and repeat them several times in public, causing Bikini Bottom to become all sorts of offended and leading to all sorts of shenanigans inside the Krusty Krab and outside. It's an episode that I'm pretty sure 99% of SpongeBob fans have already seen, and I don't really want to spoil it too much as it is really funny if you haven't seen it yourself. But as you also might know, behind the scenes when the voice actors were recording their lines, they really did swear, and of course the audio was eventually censored afterwards. They actually tried using pseudo swears or replacement words, but they ended up being too awkward for the actors to work with, which in hindsight is actually pretty funny, but as you could probably guess, this has led to several people trying to look for the raw, unedited audio used for Sailor Mouth. And yeah, we kinda got something from this. To my knowledge, there actually is a leak from one of the swears.
Eels.
Ah! Blow me!
How do we know that this one is real? Paramount removed the original post from the Internet Archive when it was posted. Now that's how you know it's real, when they issue some kind of copyright claim against the thing. So while we do have this piece of audio, the rest of the episode uncensored is sadly unaccounted for. Now this one would be freaking hilarious if it was actually found. Just think of all the meme potentials and YTPs that could be made from this. I know it exists out there somewhere. Let's just hope that one day somebody will find the audio and we can finally have access to it for all of our memeing glory. The Mickey and Minnie Mouse sex tape. Now this one is purely rumour, but the chance of its existence really makes me want to include it, so I am going to. This one is infamous and very well known, but if you don't know about it, I'll give you the rundown. The tale of this one goes all the way back to the 30s, on Walt's 35th birthday in 1936. His brother Roy encouraged two Disney employees to hold a surprise party for him for the celebration. The animators decided for fun, they would animate a short of Mickey and Minnie getting it on. When the short was shown, Walt reportedly laughed at the short, praised its animation, and then he asked who was responsible for it. When the two animators revealed themselves, they were immediately fired, and Walt ordered that every single tape was to be destroyed. The only source that may lead to this one being real is a mention of it on the 1994 biography Walt Disney, Hollywood's Dark Prince. It's important to note that the biography itself is infamous for its inconsistencies and its errors, so it's more than likely that this is just a hoax. But unless it's confirmed by the House of Mouse themselves, we won't really know for sure. Who knows? Maybe there really is some tapes out there of Mickey and Minnie getting it on. The Disney Channel wand indents. This entry caught me off guard when I first learned about it, because I know how well known these were. The Disney Channel wand indents are something that you might not know by name, but you sure as hell will know them when I show you one.
Hey, I'm Selena Gomez from Wizards of Waverly Place, and you're watching Disney Channel. Hello. Ah, thank you. Nice.
Yeah, despite how iconic these things are, many celebrities who did them, their versions are nowhere to be found. The indents have been a staple since they first started on June the 1st, 2003, and they've been going for over 20 years. It would make sense, sadly, that some of them have slipped through the cracks over the years. Some of these lost indents include Shia LaBeouf's, Adam Lamberg's, Emily Osment's, and Lindsay Lohan's, just to name a few of them. We may never know if these will eventually turn up, and it's very unlikely that we will ever see the full collection come together. But we can never forget how iconic these were, and it's really hard to imagine Disney Channel without them, to be honest. Laughlets. Keeping the Disney trend going, we have an entry on something that predates Mickey, Oswald, and even Pete. we have the strange case of Laughlets. Laughlets was a series of short silent films which utilised a lot of styles of animation alongside some live action segments as well. It was produced between 1922 and 1923 by animators at Walt Disney's first animation studio called Laugh-O-Gram. They acted as funny jokes of the time or just gags. Laughlets really was just a way for them to experiment with animation and what could be done with it. Walt Disney saw the potential in Laughlets, and he actually sent a copy over to Universal Pictures in 1923. But because this video is titled Lost Media instead of Famous Media, something went wrong. Initially, Universal Pictures actually did show a good amount of interest in Laughlets, but sadly they never went on to distribute the shorts. Because of this, and the fact that Laughlets is literally over 103 years old, this hasn't really left us with much of anything to work with. The only bits of evidence that we have of Laughlets even existing were some old titles and descriptions of the shorts. This one would be amazing to find, to see some of Disney's oldest works long before they ever thought about Mickey or even Oswald. However, I have a feeling that Laughlets will forever remain lost to time, due to how old it is and the fact that Universal never really gave it a chance. Let's just hope maybe one day something more will come of this. The Toy Story Black Friday reel. Now, not to be confused with the shitty creepypasta called the Black Friday incident, this piece of lost media is real, and it's one I just can't stop thinking about. The Black Friday reel is an early version of what would become Toy Story. When Disney was working with Pixar on the project initially, they actually intended for it to be aimed towards adults instead of just to the family. This version, which we now know as the Black Friday reel, is considerably more cynical, crude, and darker than the version we have now. It's not actually known for sure how far it went into production. It's said that it was actually fully storyboarded and scripted, but Disney's reaction to it was anything but positive. Thus, it was scrapped and redone, and eventually became the Toy Story that we all know and love. I wonder what would have happened if Pixar actually went forward with this version of Toy Story. I doubt we will ever actually see the full Black Friday reel, but I'll still hold out hope that maybe one day we'll get a little bit more from this mysterious version of Toy Story. Batman fights Dracula. This is one of the strangest pieces of lost media, yet I just can't help but love it. Batman Fights Dracula is an unofficial Filipino parody film made in 1967. As the name implies, it's a film where Batman takes on Dracula. The fact that this was a parody film, the fact that it features absolute icons like Batman and Dracula, and the fact it's been missing for almost 60 years, it cements itself as one of the most sought after pieces of Asian lost media ever out there. Very little information is known about the film, apart from the cast, production, etc. We do know about its plot though. It would basically consist of a mad scientist named Dr. Zorba, who after suffering defeat after defeat by Batman, would find a way to bring back Count Dracula. He would then pin him up against the Caped Crusader. Zorba actually made sure that Dracula didn't have any of his classic weaknesses, like being weak to a cross, so I imagine they actually would have had a pretty decent fight. But towards the end of the film, Dracula ends up turning on Dr. Zorba and thus he is defeated. The only remaining pieces of this film that we have are the poster and some of the stills from behind the scenes. Most of the films of its production company, Lear Productions, were sadly destroyed when Ultra Vista Cinema burned down. It's likely that this film was actually one of the films that was lost during this fire, so unless somebody has a copy, I doubt that we'll ever see this one resurface. And it's such a shame because I imagine this would be a legendary find for the lost media community. Super Horno Bros. Yep, I wish I was making that title up, but it's true. Our final entry is quite wild, so buckle up. Super Horno Bros is probably what you could guess. It's a pornographic parody film of Mario, Luigi, Bowser, and Peach, with parody names like Orneo Horneo, Squeegee, King Pooper, and Princess Perlina. Very subtle, I know. While there's not much to this film, it's a porno, what do you expect? It's actually quite intriguing. Super Horno Bros is lost. However, its sequel, Yeah, you heard that right, this thing got a sequel. Is not lost, as it was found in 2014. It's fully available to watch online, but only do so at your own risk. The makers of this film actually do want it to be released. However, Nintendo won't allow that, because believe it or not, Nintendo actually bought the rights to these two films. Yeah, Nintendo legally owns the rights to two Mario Smut films. This was actually done to prevent the films from ever being released. So while the first one is safely locked away, the second isn't. There is footage from the first film in the form of a recap during the second film, but the complete experience is most likely going to be sealed away for good. This was just insane to think about. It genuinely blew my mind when I first heard of it, and the fact that Nintendo legally owns these two films is just amazing. But there you have it, my top 10 favourite pieces of lost media. Kinda. You see, while these are my favourite ones that are still lost, I like other pieces of media that used to be lost a little bit more, like Ulterior Motives and the Lost Herobrine stream. I decided to omit the ones that have been found, because I didn't think they would fit together. I might do a video on the ones that have been found since if you guys would like me to. But regardless, I hope you enjoyed. If you'd like to see more lost media content from me, consider subscribing and let me know what kind of lost media stuff I should look into. For now though, I'm DarkTheMage, and take care everybody.